Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Today in Mañana. I'm Alex. This is Xavier. We're very excited to have you joining us on a beautiful morning here in Charlottesville, Virginia. It is crisp. It is sunny.
Yeah. Like the apples are like a honey crisp.
Like the honey crisp.
Yeah, it's a honey crisp day. Here you are.
Every once in a while, the exiled Cuban poet comes out.
Wow,
he says
that's
something
poetry.
just
Okay,
poetic. Crisp like the apples that come out. But it's a beautiful day, and it is now. I can safely say we are in Café con Leche season.
Yeah.
Do not get a nice Café con Leche anymore.
True.
I permit it.
Well, it goes down smoothly, right? When it's warm and it's a little cool outside.
Warm, creamy, the foam and the thing. You don't ice it at this point.
And now you can throw that 1 teaspoon of leche condensada, condensed milk.
Would you actually do? Would you?
Oh yes, yes. But I mean, if you put sugar in your coffee, ignore the sugar. Put that.
No, but I mean, in Cuba, would you actually put a spoon of leche condensada in café con leche?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's what makes it like creamy and delicious.
I've never actually had it that way.
Well, you have to. I mean, it's,
I should. But you yourself probably don't even have it that way.
Well, I don't have it anymore. That's true. But when I did, that's the way I had it. If you're going to have one, you got to have it the right way.
With leche condensada. So there you have it from Xavier himself. Grab your café con leche, put a spoon of leche condensada in it, which is condensed milk. if you're wondering what the heck is he talking about?
That's right.
Condensation? It's condensed. It's sweetened condensed milk. Put a little spoon of sweetened condensed milk, get to your cozy place, and sit down and enjoy some beautiful Today in Mañana. Because we have a great show lined up for everyone this morning. We're going to be joined shortly in the show by Matthias for our wonderful monthly meetup with Matthias. And then further on in the show, we're going to have a little finance topic with Xavier and myself. Of course, always love being here on the I Love CVille Network set. Judah behind the camera pointed at me to tell me that the show is about to start, even though my eyeball had wandered somewhere.
Yeah, no, I was a little surprised because I saw him go through the one and he put it down, and I'm saying, Alex is not even looking here. You know?
I saw 3 flash my eye to the. Since I saw two comments and then flashed back and I didn't see the 1 and I realized we were at 0 already.
So I said, does he want me to start today? That's
Judah
a problem
is keeping
here.
me on the ball even when I am not on the ball. And of course, love our wonderful partners, Emergent Financial Services, Matthias Realty, of course, Charlottesville Opera, always helping us out for Adelante. So we love all our great partners.
Absolutely.
Here at Today Mañana.
And all our fans, and don't forget to share and like, and then if you get to subscribe, that'd even be better.
Exactly. Already got a couple lights today. We've got Lucrecia Morales from
Sombreros.
The wonderful Sombreros.
Absolutely.
Right here on the downtown mall.
Buenos dias. Buenos dias.
I love that I get to say the downtown mall, and they're actually on the downtown mall. Like, you do not have to go
around, or through the building.
Through York Place or to the other side. They are in the old Grit Coffee, formerly Cafe Cubano space.
That's right.
It was Grit. People have been here for like 5 years. It's probably Grit Coffee, but like it was Cafe Cubano, so now it has returned to its Latino roots.
That's right, exactly.
And it is Sombreros. You have great coffee, great.
And
food,
I bet you they have great coffee.
I'm sure it's great coffee.
With good food,
I
of course,
still
as
go for
always.
lunch because it's so good, but I'm sure it has great coffee too. So love that, and of course Sabrina Cooper liked in the show this morning. So definitely appreciate everyone who has liked the show. Be sure to like and share. Nicholas Urpí is watching us, which is always nice. He put so much work in to get our fantastic guest. It's always nice that he gets to appreciate.
He worked very hard behind the scenes.
He does indeed. He does
Not so hard in front of the scene, but certainly hard behind the scenes.
Well, he likes the show. So
I know.
We appreciate that he tunes in as well. But I don't know about you, but I always love jumping in.
Of course, and he's always got great topics, great ideas, great thoughts, and
just an all-around great guy.
Absolutely.
So we're excited to welcome to the show this morning, Matthias. Matthias, thanks for coming on again.
Good morning.
Well, good to be here again. We call it the monthly check-in with Matthias, and I think it's been probably 6 or 7 weeks, so it was about time to.
It's a new month, and we just missed probably Oktoberfest.
I mean, we're still in October, but Oktoberfest
is usually the official. The real one
ends
in Germany.
early October. That's right.
Yeah.
Ends in early October, but in America, there's still some around town. So in America, it lasts a little longer because I think they
probably till Halloween.
Yeah, probably.
Well, and actually, in Richmond, there's an Oktoberfest celebration I think that's coming weekend.
This Saturday.
Not this weekend, but the weekend after.
The following weekend.
And that apparently is a really big Oktoberfest celebration. So if everything works out, I want to drive there. You know, we have this German Stammtisch here in Charlottesville. So it's a group of Germans, and we meet on a monthly basis, usually just in a restaurant to speak some German. But this time we are planning to drive to Richmond together because of that.
Well, that'd be great.
Apparently,
That'd be great.
Huge Oktoberfest over there.
Wow.
But you're right. The actual Oktoberfest ends in the first week of October. It starts in September. Last weekend, I was in Lederhosen, and I was out in Blue Mountain with Nick, with your brother Alex.
Michael, yep. I was so sad to miss that.
That's where Michael went too. That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
And
he
Michael
loved it.
was there too,
He had a great time, he said.
That's right. So no Lederhosen today, but
Was little baby in Dundle again, or did you grow out of the Dundle?
No. So for last year's Oktoberfest, I purchased a little Dirndl for her, and it was a little bit too large. And so the question was, will she fit in this year? And yes, she did. She did. So we got 2 years out of that purchase.
That's wonderful. I can imagine how cute.
She was
yeah.
a cute girl in a Dirndl.
Oh, she's a beautiful baby girl. So yeah, you were a lucky man.
I am, yeah. And on a personal note, tomorrow is the due date.
Oh, wow.
For number 2.
I hope you have your phone on.
Tomorrow, and of course that's not reliable. We think it's going to be sometime next week.
Oh, okay.
But,
Well, if the phone rings and Matthias runs off the sound,
I'm looking at my phone. I might have to run out of here, and then you know why.
We'll know
It's
why.
not because of something you said.
Exactly. It won't be, that's it. I can't take it anymore. I'm out of here.
Yeah, how about
I
Alex?
feel offended. I'm running out of here.
Also, man, exciting. What an exciting time
absolutely.
of year. You know, but it's
Exciting
beautiful.
time.
So many things
sure.
happening.
So many
around
things
town,
happening,
you know.
and I'm bringing a topic to the show today that's been on so many people's mind this week because of, well, it was in the newspaper. You know, City Council has an idea, has a plan, and it looks like they're moving forward to it. You know, so the topic, and I understand it's not a light conversational topic, you know, but it's been on our mind. We've been discussing it for a while. The unhoused problem, and especially the downtown business impact is what I've been curious about. And you know, this podcast here today, Mañana, has of course this emphasis on downtown businesses, or just small businesses in general in the area. And so, of course, we're looking at this today from that particular angle. There's also the human angle. I think we can all agree that we have sympathy and empathy for those that are unhoused, the homeless. And that's a conversation worth having too. It's so complex, you know. It's a nuanced conversation. What leads them to be unhoused in the first place, you know? And
Exactly.
and I don't think anyone here today has the solution on how to combat that, right? And so it's really the unhoused on the downtown mall or in the city center that's been just a discussion for years now. And I feel like in recent years it has really peaked, right? Because we had so many headlines and incidences on the downtown mall, and especially the businesses on the downtown mall have been struggling with that. And
I think especially once things kind of came back, like during COVID, okay, there were so few people in the downtown mall, it was very difficult probably to distinguish, okay, are people not coming because they're just not going anywhere, right? Or are they not coming for other reasons? But now I think in the last few years, it's been, okay, this is clearly something that is discouraging families from coming and making life more difficult for the small businesses that are there. So we probably do need to do something about it.
Yeah. I mean, when you walk the downtown mall right now, you can feel the tension, right? Shop owners are doing their best to welcome patrons, customers, but the reality of people sleeping in doorways or shouting in public spaces make that really hard. Hence the tension. And it's not just an image problem, and to that topic of an image problem, of course, as a real estate professional, I talk to clients that are moving to the area about the appeal of the downtown mall. And of course, it kind of is an image problem if you have those negative headlines about, the incidences, the situations that arise.
And I would imagine kind of a image problem in the sense that, they'll hear from their realtor, it's a beautiful downtown mall, you can walk in, and then maybe they don't visit that afternoon, and they say, my realtor kind of left this part out, or this is not as nice as I thought it would be, and you never want that, because that's also unfortunately a discouraging first impression that Charlottesville can make, because for a lot of people that will come and think about moving here, that may well be your first impression, because you'll probably go straight to the downtown mall and see what it looks like.
Sure. Yeah. Reports of families with young children feeling unsafe on the mall, of course, it leads to an image problem. Yeah. Sure. But not only the image problem, it's also a climate problem for business, right? And so the city is moving or is planning to purchase a facility that is still within the city limit, but it's a little further outside. It's in the where Best Buy is.
Oh yes.
Holiday Drive, and so that's the big headline this week that I thought we can touch on and look at from different angles. It's certainly on my mind. It's relevant to my business. And you too, you talk to local business owners every day. That's the focus of your show. You probably have something to say about that as well. I find it really interesting, and I'm an optimistic person, so I don't want to outright say, "Oh, that's just another Band-Aid." No, it's finally City Council offering something concrete, right?
Right.
We had several plans over the winter months for several years now, to provide shelter and a warm space. But this might actually be a mid and long-term solution, right? And so the question remains, what is the outcome? What will be the outcome of that? So in particular, they're planning to spend $6.2 million on this property that is close to the little hotel section of the bypass, right? Holiday Drive. And it's my understanding that it's a 27,000 square feet building, right? And so the city plans to turn this into a low barrier 24/7 shelter. And they have been looking for quite a while now. We all are involved with the Friends of CVille initiative, with that organization. And so we have all heard Sanders as well as Wade discussing this, and they shared several times that they had a few ideas. I think one was in Belmont to create a low barrier shelter there, and then a property in Fiveville was considered for a while, and there was a lot of pushback, and it always sounded like it's not ideal in several regards, right? And so now they're proposing something that seems to make more sense overall. It might have downsides as well. For instance, and I wanted to ask your opinion on this, access, right? Will the unhoused be able to get there? This is further out. Yeah. Again, it's off the bypass, the intersection with 29. But for the first time, so it seems to me at least, there's something concrete. So there's a sense of excitement about this right now.
And at least once they're there, 29 is building that pedestrian bridge.
Almost finished,
so it's almost done. So in other words, there's no...
That's a ways away also.
No, in the sense that it won't matter what side of 29 you were on anymore. Yeah. You will be able to either get to one of the grocery stores, or like you will not actually have to ever cross 29 in a dangerous fashion, which people used to. People try to like run across 29.
Yeah,
you don't have to actually run across 29 anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's a. Listen, as always.
I mean, you grew up in New York.
Yeah, we look at this from a humanitarian point of view, and I totally agree. I mean, something has to be done, right? Because we need to help these people. But always the challenge is, I mean, the challenge you just mentioned there is probably the biggest one. In other words, how do we get them there? And two, do they want to be there in the first place? And I only say that because the two experiences I have, one is in New York, where they built a beautiful facility for the unhoused in New York, and this is big back in the 90s, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, it was 10% occupied, right? So finally, what they had to do literally every night is go collecting the unhoused and bring them to this particular facility, right? In order to, again, at that point was the idea is to clean up the city, right? To make it, New York, what New York used to be. And so they have to do that continuously every single night, pick them up and bring them there, right? And another experience of mine was in Denver, where I used to have a couple of clients. I used to go there once and twice a year, and I used to pass this place with like tons and tons of people were in front of this particular building. And I asked my clients, I said, what are you doing there? And they said, literally about 5 blocks away, that was the park. 5 blocks away, there's the housing, right? He says, but they never go there. I mean, it's just one of those things where they try to push them, and they say, no, we're just going to hang out in the park and stay here, right? Now, even in the winter, some people just stay there. And we're talking about Denver. Yeah. I mean, so the issue is sometimes, and you mentioned this. I mean, the house, the homeless and the unhoused is a complex issue. It's not just people that are there because they just want to be there. Sometimes there are mental issues that you need to deal with, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you deal with that in such a way that you get them to where you want them to be, and then two, somewhat stay there? I mean, it's a great idea, but I know exactly what Best Buy is. And so if they start dispersing there, where are they going? That's just a lot of commercial place. I mean, in other words, are they going to feel even comfortable just staying there? I'm sure they've discussed this in the council, and this may be a solution. But
one nice thing I would say, one of the big barriers always for cities across the country when you try to deal with the unhoused situation is you run into a lot of courts, appellate courts. And I think the Supreme Court had actually struck this down, but you would often run into a lot of appellate courts that would say, no, you cannot take anyone off the street unless you have, or you can't make it illegal to, put a tent or do something unless you have enough rooms that every single person that is unhoused in your area can go there. So in other words, if you got 800 people, but you only have 200 low-barrier rooms, right? Even if you know that all 800 people will never go to them, you still can't pass a law that says you can't live in the park because a judge is going to rule you can't pass that law because if every one of those 800 people tried to abide by your law, you actually don't have enough spaces. So at least now, right, if they can get enough rooms
to create a foundation. Yeah.
Okay, granted, the next step is to get people there, but at the very least, now if you pass an ordinance saying, you can't just put up your tent or sleep in the alleyway under we now make it that you can't do that, right? A judge can no longer strike it down saying, well, you don't have enough rooms, because they'll say, well, actually, we do now. We just built.
But so now they might have.
It opens up your avenues to maybe do some of those other things without worrying about a legal problem that an appellate court's going to say, now you can't do that.
Yeah. Of course, right now we're talking in theory about this. It's one thing to provide this facility and shelter, and then the other one is to run it continuously, right? We are talking about professional staff. We're talking about community outreach programs. There's a lot involved. Plus, and I don't know the specifics, but the $6.2 million is just for the purchase.
The land,
How much do you need to outfit the building, to modify it to the needs for what is intended there? Of course, they will need to touch a lot of money, right? But it might be the first step. But yeah, you're very right in questioning or wondering how practical is it, how feasible will it be, and time will tell. But I'm excited about there is a constructive discussion right now. And we also should acknowledge it's not the only option for those in need. We also have the Salvation Army facility here on Ridge Street, which is in walking distance from where we are right now. The difference is just the city is trying to create a low barrier facility or shelter, right? Meaning no work, no sobriety requirements. And the Salvation Army does have requirements, so it's not a low barrier. But there are different options available, and also in different locations. So I think we are getting in the right discussion. Plus, the Salvation Army is also talking about expanding the facility that they have, and they're going through fundraising efforts right now. So there's a lot happening on that front, right? But again, going back to the downtown mall and the perception that visitors have in terms of cleanliness and safety, right? So that psychological impact can be huge.
Do you think it impacts, are there like do you see second order impacts of it beyond just like the businesses on the mall being able to be successful, as opposed to, like, does it spill over into people's decisions as to, do I even want to live near the mall, or do I want to live in the outskirts? Or you think people who really want to live in the center of the city will do so regardless?
Well, I think the appeal of living downtown always exists for people. And I know for a fact that we don't have much vacancy in condos, apartments, residences here in close to the downtown mall. Quite the opposite. But, it's several aspects here. We care about downtown business owners to be successful. They make a living of that, and we want them to continue doing that. We don't want to see empty storefronts on the downtown mall. That would indicate that the problem continues to exist. And then there's the aspect of, and we touched on that already, visitors, right? Those that actually spend money on the downtown mall. We have a beautiful downtown mall, and the mall has been through struggles in the past. Even before I lived here, the discussion was about crime and safety and cleanliness on the downtown mall, and then it got revived. And frankly, that was a downtown mall that I saw when I moved here 11 years ago, and then more problems occurred again. So it's an up and down, of course. But again, the perception of the downtown mall being safe and clean and vibrant, that is something that we want to achieve, right? And there's a path there. So again, it's downtown mall business owners surviving and giving them an incentive to continue the operation there. And then all of us with our families, whether you come from Greene County or you live in Belmont or wherever it is, to actually frequent the downtown mall, spend money there, spend time in the evenings going to restaurants, going to the boutiques, going to the concert venues that we have, everything that contributes to the vibrant downtown atmosphere that we are trying to achieve again.
And I think to hopefully build more of that, I think and granted the culture in Europe is a little different, but I think to the fact that you would also love your downtown to be a place where people kind of mingle and walk when they're not in a restaurant or in a shop. And the downtown mall very much so now is very much, you go, you eat,
you leave.
You don't really say, now that I've eaten, let me linger, let me go walk back and forth and see if I meet people, see if I talk with people I haven't seen in a while. You, especially in the evenings, and if it's dark, your comfort level in doing that is diminished. And ironically, it's one of those sad little spirals because the less people go, the less comfortable people feel, the less people go in one of those. And you want to kind of go in the opposite direction where people say, okay, I am comfortable going. Oh, now there's more people. Now I'm even more comfortable just walking around the downtown mall. And so you kind of spiral you domino effect in the positive direction where you end up like a lot of those European walks, which the downtown mall resembles. Right, where so many people at 5, 6 o'clock in Europe, they're not inside all the restaurants. A lot of them are just literally walking back and forth.
And the important thing is also, the downtown mall has the ability where people can be outside eating and drinking, right? And the challenge there, of course, is when you have a situation where there's unhoused and they're kind of walking up to you, whatever, that makes it uncomfortable, right? So that's the issue, right? And because you're right, in Europe, that's what people do. When they go out to eat outside, they eat outdoors, especially obviously during the summer months, right? And they just walk around. They literally walk around. Some places are a little bigger than the downtown mall, but that's the sense of exactly walking, talking, chatting, going to a store, and then being able. The other thing is the ability to be able to say, which I don't think the downtown mall has it yet, but the ability to say, I went to dinner, I walked around, and now I want a cup of coffee. Can I sit down somewhere and have a cup of coffee and continue to chat or talk? Right
now, that kind of doesn't
exist yet.
The sense that the city is there.
Yeah,
and you'd love to get that sense in Charlottesville. Like, okay, the city is there, and everyone's there, not just they're all in their little restaurants and then they'll leave. And I think you can build that. You just have to take these kind of steps one at a time to try to get there.
And I'm very thankful that we have a group of people, many people actually, that work really hard, relentlessly on exactly that, to create this safe and pleasant atmosphere downtown. We know that Gria from friends of CVille, she puts in so much work. Do you remember the city council meeting where she represented the minority and was yelled at and shut down by the opposing people? She was there. She's trying really hard, and there's a group of people behind it, and of course, so many business owners here on the downtown mall that, and they're not one-sided in their approach. They come with a lot of empathy to the table. They approach the unhoused or the small fraction of those that create the issues. They talk to them. They have tried it for many, many years, so they're very invested. It's not a one-sided. It's actually the majority of people approach this in a very constructive way, right? And so now the city's on board, and I'm really curious to see how this unfolds. I think the due diligence period for this acquisition of that property is until end of October, so it's not a done deal, right? And we have inspections and probably also.
And then they got to build it out.
They have to build it out. How long will that take? How much money will that take, right? But, the way I read it is they must have been working on this particular idea for a long time. Otherwise, they wouldn't have announced it. Everyone's looking at them. They are on the spot. They got a lot of attention for everything they say on this topic. They wouldn't have announced this particular idea if it wasn't feasible in their opinion. So it makes sense.
It is worse for you to announce it and then in a month say we couldn't actually go through with it than to never have announced it in the first place.
Right.
So you don't typically take that risk.
But of course, there's still many question marks. Transit, access, staff, additional money to put into that build out.
But at least we've moved from, there's just nothing you can do about it, to, okay, let's try to do something about it. So I think for many years, the frustration that a lot of people in the downtown mall had was, the answer was kind of always, there's just, the law is the law, there's just nothing you can do about it. And as a small business owner, you're like, that really does not comfort me. Like, there's just nothing you can do about it. At least now it's saying, okay, there's still work to be done, but there is something you can do about it.
Right.
And we're going to at least begin to attempt to do something about it.
Right. And it goes back to that atmosphere of tension and pressure that we felt. I mean, if you had been to the last business meetings of the downtown business owners with the city manager Sanders, but also with Wade and Koches, the police chief, there was a lot of tension and pressure, and it was building up. So we kind of peaked that. So the timing is good for the city to announce something concrete that, at least on paper, appears to make sense. And to anyone listening, there's something in the works right now, and that is a good sign. Is it the perfect solution right now? No, it's not. As you said yourself, Xavier, there are many questions, many things we need to figure out. But I, for one, my wife always says I'm a hopeless optimist. But I'm looking at this with optimism because that's what it deserves, frankly.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's good, though. That's good.
And so in that spirit, let's be positive about this and spread the word.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's the housing issue, the unhoused issue, as you mentioned at the very beginning, is a complex issue. And I think, the one thing I always, in a way, kind of criticize this country for is that we have a tax system that really doesn't benefit counties and cities. We put too much money into the federal government, and how it trickles back down to you is very questionable. And so I always say we should have a higher tax basis. Let the government do what they need to do in certain areas, and I'm not going to mention those right now. But I think from a perspective of I'd rather pay more taxes to my city, my county, because then I can dictate more where those taxes, where that money should be used. And many of these folks need tender loving care in the sense of they need continuous help, they need medical help, they need assistance, and that is what they need more than anything else, right? So it's something where in some cases they may be able to be cured, in some cases they cannot, but we need to help them, right? But when you sit here as a little city like Charlottesville and you're going to spend $6 million here, but then do you have the funds available to really help these people? Or are you just going to hope and pray that they just go there and live there, right? And that's the big question mark, right? So, I mean, I'm like you, I'm an optimist. The problem is I've seen this movie many, many times, and, unfortunately it never ends well. But I'm hoping that this is not the case, because for multiple reasons. I mean, granted, I agree 100% the downtown mall is a place where, families, people should come all the time. The business owners, I know quite a few of them, and they're challenged. They really are challenged on it every single morning to make that place, respectable. So it's difficult for a lot of people.
And for a long time, the city was so focused on this small group of unhoused people and to provide solutions and approach them with dignity that they had forgotten about the business owners, right? And so we don't want business owners to become unhoused in the process. And
Exactly.
I'm exaggerating right now,
but
but to make my point,
And
we need
housed
to
in the
look
sense
at
that
everyone
they have
involved.
to leave the mall, and then you have an empty mall.
Yeah. No, you're both right. It's it's a circle. It's a domino effect, right? It goes one way and it can go the other way, right? So the idea is to get it flowing, get it rolling the other way, where everybody begins to feel much more comfortable about going to the downtown mall, and we all pray that the unhoused are helped and that they have a better life, right? And that's the goal. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, folks, thanks for letting me
No, this has been great. In fact,
bring this up.
absolutely.
I'm passionate
the
about
commenters
this.
are loving it. Bobby Lem Petrino says, great discussion. Thanks, Matthias, for bringing it to us.
Hey, Bobby. Thanks.
Cheers. So Bobby loves it. Ricardo Cruz Duran is saying, so nice to see you all. Good to see you, Ricardo. So, I think the audience has appreciated
Yeah.
that you kind of...
It affects us all.
It does.
Absolutely.
And it's nice because there's so many places you can go and read about this topic from different perspectives. But it's nice that we can bring our audience this same topic in a much more measured perspective that I think all three of us have, right? That from a different angle, a much more of a small business and a human angle, rather than worrying about, okay, who's on this side, who's on that side, who's on that side, kind of thing.
Yeah, the most important thing is always, you just mentioned the human angle, right? I mean, you have to help people. That's what we're here for. That's humanity, right? And certainly from our Christian background, that's what we try to do. So that's the first and foremost, right? Is how do we help people, you know? And we just have to make sure, like we all said, that this particular project, right, works, right? Because if it doesn't work, then we're in the same boat and we haven't helped those people. So.
So thank you for bringing this to us.
Good discussion.
Always a great discussion. I love having you on. It's amazing. The time flies.
It really does,
when we have Matthias on. So I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the next one.
See you guys in November.
See you in a little bit. I know you've done a bit of a drive, but to see you and safe travels.
Thanks.
There was that song, See You in September. I'm going to see you this. See you in, it's in September.
I don't know. Well, now we'll say see you in November.
See you in November.
Thanks for coming on, Matthias.
Thank you, Matthias.
Thanks for having me.
I always love having Matthias on.
Always, yes.
I always learn so much.
That was a great discussion. Yeah, I had no idea he was going to talk about that, so it's fantastic. Yeah.
So always appreciate. Well, we love surprising. We love surprising.
Oh yeah, that's good.
You know, Nicholas especially loves doing that, being like, Xavier, guess what today's topic is. Sometimes he'll even do it. Xavier, guess who today's guest is.
I don't ask myself, so that's just him. Yeah.
We appreciate that. Thanks for the comments, Bobby Ricardo, John Gordon. Thanks for watching the show this morning. Always appreciate everyone who tunes in and sends us your questions and comments.
Yes, always, please. Yeah.
You know, and now we'll go super controversial and talk about the Federal Reserve next.
There, I don't hold back.
We will talk about the Federal Reserve, but you don't have to not hold back. So it's been a while since we've had a last finance topic. Couple things in the news. I know some things have been on your mind. Don't know if you wanted to start Federal Reserve, government shutdown.
They're both almost in the same kind of genre, right? Because the way you and I look at things is how are decisions made by the Federal Reserve, the administration, anybody else? How does that impact the markets, right? Because that's what we're here all about. In other words, what is the impact on the markets, right? But you and I also know that it's not so much what are the impacts on the markets, because meaning Emergent financial services in particular, we're not day traders, right? So I'm not interested in, how's the market going to open? Do I take advantage of this opening? And
we're more like, where could this leave the market?
Exactly.
That's what it's used, because ultimately that's where our client portfolios will end up.
Exactly.
Because again, right, you can control as an investment advisor, right? You can control to an extent the magnitude of how your client's portfolios will react to the market. But you are never going to make a client portfolio that does not move in the direction of the market. What will determine up or down is going to be the market. Because I'm going to say that I don't think your investment advisor should have you in an inverse portfolio that if the market goes up, you go down. And if the market goes down, you go up. Right? Let's throw that out, right?
Yeah.
So we care about where the markets are going long term, because that's the direction our client portfolios are going to go in, and we need to decide how much magnitude, how much we want to be exposed to that.
Yeah, it's basically how do you, we always talk about it, how do you manage risk, right? Mm-hmm. And so the question is, are we managing risk in such a way that the portfolios are protected in such a way that we feel comfortable? Mm-hmm. And again, to a certain respect, all the portfolios are customized, right? They're customized to the particular client's goals and needs. So, but you have to sit back and say, okay, we had this particular risk level because we expected this was going to happen, and over the long term we expect this particular return, right? If the markets are shifting in a particular way, you may say, well, we need to adjust that portfolio a little bit in order to make sure that we are capturing some of the changes that may occur because of this, right?
And everyone can have a customized portfolio, but there's always going to be certain things that are going to be applicable to everybody.
Absolutely, exactly.
The difference between floating rate bonds and fixed rate bonds in an interest rate environment, you're not going to leave one. You have to say, well, this client, that really doesn't apply to them. Their portfolios. Very rare, one in 100 cases, maybe they have something that it doesn't apply. But there are going to be things that just apply to everybody.
Absolutely, no, exactly, and you're right, and obviously, from the perspective of the Fed, lowering or increasing rates. has as big as impact in the fixed income market, right? So in other words, what is the direction of interest rates based on what the Fed is doing? And I thought it was interesting because when the Fed lowered the rates, I think it was on September 17th, when they lowered the rates by 1/4 point, right? The short end of the market, because think about this, the way the bond market works is the expectation is where interest rates are going, right? Short-term interest rates literally never move except for when the Fed changes rates, because literally short-term rates are based on what the Fed funds rate is, right? However, in the interest rate longer than the 2-year Treasury note, those rates can move up and down regardless of what the rate is doing, right?
Well, and some people would argue those are even more driven by inflation expectations than by interest rate, because it's a double effect. Like the long end of the curve is saying, where do I think inflation is going to be? Because that's where I think interest rates will have an effect 2, 5, 10 years down the road. Whereas the short end is like, well, I already know what today's inflation is. All I care about is what is the Federal Reserve going to do?
Exactly, and where is the rate of the Fed? What is the Federal Reserve rate today, right? But you're absolutely right. In other words, basically, if you're investing in a 10-year Treasury security and you're earning, let's say, and I'm throwing this number out so that you're earning 5%, right? The expectation you have is that 5% will outperform inflation. However, if you think inflation is going to rise above 5%, you're saying, I don't want to buy a 5% 10-year, because if inflation is going to be 6-7% in 2 or 3 years, I'm going to be losing money, right? So therefore, in that situation, it's like nobody's buying the 10-year. So what happens? The 10-year rate moves up to that 7%, where you say, okay, at 7%, I'll buy it because I think it's going to cover the inflation expectation, right? So that's what you're alluding to, right? But on the short end, but I thought it was interesting, again, so they lowered the rates on September 17th, 1/4 point. The short end market dropped 1/4 point literally across the board, some 25, 30 basis points. The rest of the curve, literally, in some cases, from September 17th to today, interest rates are up, right? So basically, the rally in the long end of the yield curve had already happened before even the Fed took its step, because they were expecting it, right? And two, they're looking, as you said, they're looking at the inflation numbers and saying, okay, inflation, although it's not where the Fed originally wants it to be, which is at 2%, has come down, right? And two, the fear at the beginning of the year was that these tariffs are going to cause inflationary pressures, right? And so, one, it hasn't appeared, and two, once Powell said that he was surprised that the tariffs haven't caused inflation, and therefore he's willing to cut the 1/4% rate, right? Then the market had rallied already ahead of that, and so now, like I said, the long end of the curve literally went up about 10 basis points from the time that they lowered. So short-term rates came down 25 basis points. Long-term rates went about 10 basis points. But the nice thing is, like, we are now beginning to see what we call a normalized curve, which means that short-term rates have lower rates than longer-term rates.
Which if you think about it as normal, right? You should, in a normal world, right? If I'm going to lend you money for 3 months, I would expect less interest than if I'm going to lend you money for 10 years.
Right.
Right? That's basic common sense. So for the curve to be inverted, where it's cheaper and you pay me less to lend you money for 10 years than you do for me to lend you money for 6 months, just doesn't make sense. Yeah. It's a sign of a problem. But now the normalization usually is a more positive sign.
Exactly. And think about banks. I mean, for banks, it's very important for that curve to be normal, because in particular, the 10-year is kind of the surrogate for the 30-year mortgage, right? So if the 10-year is lower than where they can then borrow money, that doesn't work, right? So a normalized curve, and it's not, it's somewhat normalized. It's a little bit flat in the short end, but at least it's going in the right direction, right? So from a perspective of fixed income, there are strategies to be employed because of the fact that the Fed lowered rates, because of the fact that the expectation is that they might do it again at least, right?
Is that what I was going to ask you, what was your reading into the what they said as to whether this was a one-time or if it's possible they'll do it again.
So I think most people expect them to do it one more time, another quarter point, and I think given the softness in their labor market, I think they go into lower rates another time here this year, right? So I think that's going to happen, yeah. So, and again, so from an investment point of view, from an investment manager point of view, those are the type of, that's the type of information that, given what you see, and again, nobody has a crystal ball, and I always tell people, I don't have a crystal ball. However, given what we expect the market to do, or what the Fed to do, we're going to shift our particular strategy in fixed income this way, right? Because we think this is going to be beneficial for the portfolio longer term, right? But, and you're talking about the government shutdown, and, before the government shutdown, I mean, there was one article after another where people are saying, watch out 401ks, you're going to get crushed, the market's going to, just tumble. Market's up.
Yep.
Right? So,
not only that, I was at an investment conference the other week, and the guy who was a portfolio manager was talking at the conference said, this was like the morning of the shutdown, right? He said, so in other words, this isn't just an anomaly, to show you that this is not an anomaly, like, oh, this is just the one random time that the market's up for a shutdown. There have been 3 shutdowns this century.
Yeah.
Right, so since 2000, right? There have been 3 shutdowns. The market went up during all 3 shutdowns. Because again, the market is forward-looking. It's not, the market doesn't, excuse me, market doesn't wake up on Tuesday morning of the shutdown and say, oh my goodness, there's a shutdown. This is the end. The market baked in the week beforehand, okay, yeah, there's probably going to be a shutdown. So now the market's looking forward and saying, okay, do I see anything in the next 3 months that's going to be a disastrous? No. It doesn't mean it won't happen, but I'm not seeing it yet. And
two, the other thing that's very important, right? There's the public market and the private market, right? If all of a sudden the private market, let's say, and again, throwing these names out now, I don't want people to get nervous, but let's say Costco says, we're struggling, we're shutting down, basically 50% of our operations, right? Well, that 50% operation means there's a lot of people going to be unemployed. They're not going to get paid, right? That's an impact on the economy, right? Basically, the government shutting down the market says, yeah, we're going to pay you today, but you know what? When you come back to work, there's furlough. In other words, we're going to pay you every single penny you would have earned. So the markets are looking at that. There's no impact on basically the economy because, yes, maybe even if it's shut down for a month or 2 months, which it's never happened, 35
days is the most.
So if it's shut down 1 month, it's not going to impact the economy. So these people are still going to eat bread. They're still going to buy food, have gas. So maybe they don't buy the TV this month, right? But then they're going to get a big check the next month. It's like, oh, wow, yeah, I forgot about that. Now I got a big check. So in reality, the market looks at that and said, there's no impact, right? In other words, there's nothing really that a government shutdown is going to cause a situation where there's going to be chaos in the street. No, because people's like, I still got my job, and the only thing is I don't have to go to work, right? So there's not really anything dramatic that is impacting the markets. Yeah.
And I think the market kind of sees that, knows what historically has happened. And then you can't always, the issue is you can't manage a portfolio market by assuming the worst possible tail risk. Like you can't sit there and say, oh my goodness, there's a 1% chance that this lasts 9 months and the whole thing falls apart, right?
Right.
You can't manage portfolios that way. Because if you did, then you would leave your clients in 3-month treasury bills 12 months out of the year, because there's always a 1% chance of some disastrous thing which you have not even foreseen occurring.
Nobody has.
You can't manage an entire portfolio for tail risk. You have to manage it based on foreseeable ordinary risk, right? You can test for tail risk every once in a while and say, okay, if there's tail risk, okay, is this a minus 100% return? Okay, maybe I should do something about that, right? But you can't manage every day for that risk because you will be costing people in this very environment. Because if you had sold everything and gone into cash the day before the shutdown, you don't look very good on your return right now.
Yeah, the market's up 2% since then. I mean, it's like, it's only 2, but it's only a few days.
Yeah, 2% a few days annualized is a huge number.
Exactly. So you sit there and go, oops, I lost 2% of my money.
So that's something just to keep in mind, I think. And I think that applies to a lot of things, right? It applies to the shutdown, applies to the Federal Reserve, right? And it applies even to things which are maybe newer to us, the extent to which we may be looking at tariffs in the future. I mean, even Powell said, as I looked into this, I realized that, which I mean, I would argue that Economics 101 should have taught him this, but maybe sometimes the smarter you are, the more it takes you to get around to it.
Get back to basics.
Get back to basics. That a tariff is a one-time increase in prices. So the concern with inflation is not, in other words, what worries you more with inflation, right, is not that I come to you today and say, all right, everything you buy is going to be 5% more expensive tomorrow, and that's it. The problem with inflation is it's 5% more expensive than last year. Now it's 9% more expensive than the 5% it was. Now it's 3%. So in other words, when we had the 9% inflation year over year, right, back in 2022, and then the next month it was 7. Well, that means it was 7 above whatever that is. In other words,
on top of the 9.
Inflation is a compounding thing,
Exactly.
meaning by the time you're done with 3 years of inflation, everything's 40% more expensive than it was, and then it's not stopping because you rarely ever have inflation that turns negative, right? And Powell said, what I realized was that when you put a tariff on something, it's not like it's 10% more expensive tomorrow, then it's 10% more expensive than that the next day, then it's 10%. That's not how a tariff works. It's boom, 10% more expensive, and even then only until you actually, if your goal is to bring manufacturing back there, only until you've successfully brought the manufacturing back, at which point it settles back between 0 and whatever the tariff was.
Right.
Because the point of the tariff is that the cost to produce it here is less than that, hence you will come back here rather than pay the tariff, right? So Powell said basically he realized, okay, this is not a persistent driver of inflation, even if it were to manifest in the next 12 months. So that's one of those things people have to keep in mind is that, okay, these things which can sound scary at first, the market then looks at it and says, okay, yeah, it looked scary on Liberation Day, but it doesn't look so scary now. Because half to 3/4 of those tariffs will never be implemented because the EU made a deal. A lot of these countries have made a deal. So the 90% tariff on Vietnam is not happening because Vietnam said, well, I don't want a 90% tariff. I'll buy some of your stuff if you take it away. Right? And Europe made an extremely favorable deal with the United States on this, right? So the market realized, okay, a lot of this is never going to happen. And even if it does happen, to Powell's point, it's not like it's a continuous, never-ending process.
Yeah, and not only that, let's face it, companies sit back and say, all right, do I really want to impose this huge of an increase in my product? And the answer is a lot of times no. In other words, I can eat part of that because I still want my product to be consumed as much as possible.
Exactly.
In other words, I want that supply to increase, right? In the sense of demand increase, so the supply can increase, as opposed to all of a sudden the demand drops to almost 0 because it's so expensive. I'm out of business, right?
Exactly.
So I'll absorb some of that cost for now, pass a little of the cost to the consumer, and then over time try to figure out, am I happy, where I am, or do I next year also increase it a little bit more, right? But so that's the situation, right? And as you mentioned, the whole goal originally is to bring back some more manufacturing here, and listen, between robotics and AI, there's a lot of things that are being done cheaper now than 10 years ago, or 5 years ago. So that probability of bringing that back is
there's
greater.
a term in economics for like elastic goods, right? In other words, price increases can't be 100% passed on if I can go buy something else.
Right.
That's somewhat like the thing you are selling. You can only pass on a price if you are the only guy in the world making this one thing, then you can raise the price, and if I need it, I have to buy it. But if there's any kind of substitute for it, then you can't pass on the entirety of the price because I will just move to the substitute.
Yeah.
And for a lot of the goods we're talking about, there are substitutes for them, right? Whether it's somebody else's lumber, whether it's there's a company in the U.S. that makes this. Maybe there's a company in Europe that made the trade deal that sells it that is now cheaper than the company in China that has a 140% tariff on it.
Exactly.
Right? So there's always things you can do to move it around so they cannot pass on the entirety of the tariff. And that's kind of always how this works. And you can know it works because whenever there's talked about raising corporate tax rates, right? No one ever says, well, oh no, they're going to pass on all of the corporate. There's kind of an understanding, right? Well, okay, if you increase corporate taxes by 5%, not everything goes up 5%, but the assumption is the company can't just say, the assumption is the corporation won't say, I still want my same exact profit, so I'll just charge everybody 5%. Well, there's kind of an unstated assumption that they won't do that. Otherwise, no one would propose a corporate tax hike.
Exactly.
Right? So the implication is that if you impose a corporate tax hike, the profit of the corporation goes down.
Right.
Well, the profit only goes down if they don't pass on all of the tax hike because you know that they can't.
Right.
So it's a similar vein with tariffs, right? You know that they cannot pass on 100% of the tariff.
Exactly. Yeah.
So just a couple of things I think.
Yeah, so that's where that's where we are. I mean, it's been a very interesting year. I mean, it's interesting because there's just so much literally going on, and we've talked about this electricity, AI, and again, obviously the Fed. I mean, there's just so much that I should say the economic. How the economy is run today is different how it was run 10, 15, 20 years ago, and how it's going to be run in the future, I think, is changing. So that's the only thing that and it's where we spend a lot of time, obviously, doing a lot of research and saying, where are we going and what's going to be that which is in most demand in the future. So those are some of the things that you really, as an investment manager, also need to sit down and think about.
Well, and these are the kind of environments where you can't just passively sit there and say, I'll just put all my money in the stock market in one fund and not pay attention to it. That may not be the best. I mean, we saw that a few years ago with the bond market, right? 2022, you could not be passive and say, oh, just my bond allocation, put it all in one bond fund that's the entire bond market and leave it there.
Yeah.
You would have been crushed.
Exactly.
Right? And and there were just a few things you could have done that would have made you not get crushed. Right? And I think we're in an environment where you cannot just say, leave all my money in one fund and don't think about it.
Yeah.
Because there are going to be some changes that certain portions of the market are going to do better than others. And you can't just say, leave all my money in the growth fund because growth did the best over the last couple of years and don't look at it. That may not fly going forward. Exactly. It certainly hasn't flown in the second half of this year.
True. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the other thing is always, if you have funds that are not in retirement accounts, tax loss harvesting is something that is actively, opportunities are there, right? And but that's an active portfolio. You have to look at that and manage it. But again, you buy one fund, that fund goes up in price. The minute you sell it, you're paying taxes, right? And there's opportunities where you don't have to do that, right?
Mm-hmm. So just some things to think about.
Absolutely, always.
Well, this has been a blast. It's always love doing some. I missed a little bit of finance topic. Always love talking a little shop. I just to give people an insight as to what happens around the Emergent table
on Monday morning.
On Monday mornings, sometimes more than just Monday mornings. So definitely, always appreciate being able to look into that and. It was a great show. Enjoyed spending some time with Matthias.
Yeah, no, it's a good topic Matthias brought up. I mean, that is something that is so important here in the city. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely appreciate everyone who tuned in today. All our great viewers. Again, thanks for the comments, the questions, or in this case, the compliment. The compliment to Matthias's topic of the day. Definitely appreciate everyone who tuned in. Of course, we appreciate our great partners, Emergent Financial Services, of course, and Matthias, you own Realty for Adelante. Appreciate the I Love CVille Network, Judah behind the camera, making us all look good. Always appreciate being on with you. Same here.
Always a plan. And most of all, we're really thankful for all our viewers. Thanks so much for tuning in this morning. We look forward to seeing you next week or
2 weeks.
No, we're a little
it's next week.
Off
That's right.
schedule.
We're off. So it's next week.
We were slightly delayed this week, so we will actually be on next week.
Okay.
Look forward to seeing you all then. But until that time, as we like to close it out on the show, hasta mañana.